Okay, I want to start with a scenario. It's one that, honestly, keeps me up at night. Imagine you have two brothers,
Okay.
and the world around them is just collapsing. It's literally burning down. One brother, he sees the fire coming, and he runs, escapes, builds a nice, safe life for himself.
And the other one.
The other brother stays, and he gets burned badly. So years later, they finally meet. My question is, does the one who escaped have the right to even look the survivor in the eye?
Right.
And does the survivor have the right to demand an apology for survival?
That is the oldest story, isn't it? It's Cain and Abel. It's the guilt of the survivor versus the guilt of the bystander.
Right.
But the source material we have today,
Yeah.
it takes that exact tension and drops it into maybe the most chemically reactive setting possible. Post-World War II Germany.
We are looking at a document titled The Commemmoration, or Das Gedenkfest. And I have to say, when I first started reading this, I thought I was reading a lost manuscript by Thomas Mann.
Oh, yeah. The style is uncanny.
It's so dense, the themes are so heavy, it feels like, I don't know, the literary equivalent of a dark oak library.
And it's designed to feel exactly like that. But, and we should be really clear about this up front, this is not Thomas Mann. It's a brilliant piece of historical fiction.
Written by authors under pseudonyms, Max and Claude.
Exactly. They wrote it to explore the questions that the real Thomas Mann wrestled with in, say, Dr. Faustus, but they wanted to strip away all the allegory, the devils, the pacts.
And just put two people in a room.
Just put two human beings in a room to hash it all out.
So it's a philosophical cage match, basically. But instead of fists, they're throwing around concepts like Bildung and moral complicity.
And we really have to pause on that word, Bildung.
Yes, because if you don't get that, you don't get these characters at all, right?
It's crucial. In English, we say education or culture, but it's just so weak. In the German tradition, Bildung was almost a religion. It was the cultivation of the soul.
So it's not just knowing facts.
No. It's reading Goethe, listening to Beethoven, and just refining your inner self to become this superior human being.
Which sets up the central paradox of this entire deep dive. How did a culture so obsessed with perfecting the soul produce the Holocaust?
How do you go from poetry to gas chambers?
Yeah.
That is the question. And the brothers Volkhardt, they acted out. They were the two halves of that split German soul. Adrian, the one who left.
And Manfred, the one who stayed.
The one who stayed.
Okay, let's meet Adrian first. It's 1952. He's 73, living this quiet professorial life in Massachusetts. The text spends a lot of time on his morning routine.
The coffee.
The coffee. He puts heavy cream in his coffee, even though his doctor said not to. He calls it his small daily rebellion. Now, I read that and thought, okay, the guy likes cream. But you think it's more than that?
Oh, it's everything. It's his entire worldview. Adrian is a disciple of Arthur Schopenhauer.
Okay, hold on. For those of us who haven't brushed up on our 19th century German pessimism lately, Schopenhauer is the life is suffering guy.
Yeah, that's the one. Basically, the world is driven by this blind, irrational will, and it's mostly miserable. The best you can do is find a quiet corner, minimize your own pain.
Satisfy your own small will.
And for Adrian, that cream in the coffee, that's his victory. He survived. He's comfortable. He has tenure. He truly believes that securing his own little island of peace is the highest good he could possibly have achieved.
He's comfortable, but he's also completely disconnected. The text says he hasn't spoken to his brother Manfred since 1937.
15 years.
15 years of radio silence. And he didn't even try to find out if Manfred was alive after the war. That just seems so cold.
It's not just cold, it's calculated.
Yeah.
The author's right, and this is a key line. Certainty would have required action.
Wow.
If he knew Manfred was dead, he'd have to mourn. If he knew he was alive, he'd have to help. So ignorance. Ignorance let him stay in that comfortable Massachusetts bubble.
Until the bubble pops, he gets a letter. Heavy cream stock, fancy calligraphy, inviting him back to Munich for a conference. And the title is Memory, Responsibility, and the Future of European Thought.
Which is just so rich given the context. You have to remember, 1952 is the start of the Wirtschaftswunder.
The economic miracle.
The economic miracle. West Germany is rebuilding at this frantic pace. Everyone just wants to look normal again. The text calls this conference a ceremony of self-exoneration.
It's like putting a fresh coat of paint on a house that's still smoldering.
Exactly. It's a bunch of intellectuals getting together to use big words to prove they're still civilized, without actually dealing with a mess.
But Adrian's cynical enough to see that. He almost throws the invitation away. But then he scans the advisory board, and he sees a name. Manfred Zimmer.
And he knows instantly. That's him. That's Manfred Volkhardt, his little brother.
So he has to go. But before he gets there, we need to understand the split. What happened in 1937?
It was political, but deeply personal. Manfred was. He was the wild one. Charming, intuitive. Adrian was the discipline's dollar. So when the Nazis rose to power, Manfred saw it for what it was, immediately. He got radicalized. He joined the resistance.
He was awake.
And Adrian did what a lot of academics did. He retreated. He hid behind objectivity. He kept saying, scholarship is above politics. He thought if he just shut his study door and focused on his books, the storm would pass.
I feel like we see that today, don't we? People who say, I'm not political while the world is literally on fire around them. It's a kind of privilege to be able to ignore it.
It is. And Manfred called him out on it. But then in 1937, Manfred was arrested. And Adrian panicked. He took his wife, Helene, who was Jewish, and they fled to America.
Okay, let me play devil's advocate for a second. He fled to save his Jewish wife. That's a noble reason, isn't it? You can't really blame him for getting his family out of danger.
And that is the defense Adrian has used on himself for 15 years. I left for Helene. It's the perfect shield. But the text hints that deep down, Adrian knows that wasn't the only reason. He didn't just leave to save her. He left because he was terrified of losing his comfort, his status, his cream in the coffee.
So he goes back to Munich in 1952 with all this guilt and this defense mechanism, and the description of the city is haunting.
It's not the ruined city of 45, but it's not the old Munich either. The authors describe it as a stage set. The buildings are new, but they feel fake. The people speak this new German. It's overly democratic, sanitized.
Robotic.
Almost robotic, yeah. He feels like he's walking through a theater production.
So he goes to the conference, he meets the organizer, Dr. Martens, and he finally asks about Manfred. And this is where reality hits him like a freight train.
Dr. Martens just tells him the truth. Manfred didn't just go to prison. He spent 8 years in Dachau. 8 years. She tells Adrian that when the Americans liberated the camp, Manfred weighed 40 kilograms.
That's
88 pounds. He is physically ruined. His health is just shattered. But intellectually, he's sharper than ever. He's now a professor of ethics, of all things.
the irony. That image, the contrast between Adrian, the cream and the coffee professor, and Manfred, the 88-pound survivor, it just sets the stakes for the keynote speech.
Because he's supposed to get up there in a room full of people desperate to feel good about themselves and give this safe academic speech. Talk about Kant, talk about the German spirit.
Safe play.
A safe play. But he gets up to the podium, he looks out and he sees him. Third row, white hair, gaunt face. He sees Manfred, and Adrian just breaks.
He commits professional suicide right there on the stage.
Totally. He looks at his notes, realizes they're all lies, and just abandons them. And he starts talking about what he calls the sin of abstraction.
The sin of abstraction. Let's unpack that. What does he mean?
He means using big ideas to hide from specific ugly realities. He tells the audience, we loved humanity with a capital H, but we didn't care about actual human beings. We loved truth, but we ignored the truth of the camps. And then he confesses.
Right there. In front of everyone.
He says, I didn't leave Germany to save my wife. That was a convenient excuse. He says, I left because I was a coward. I prioritized my own safety over my brother's life.
The room must have been dead silent.
Frozen. He's ruining their whole commemoration. He's telling them, I look out at you and I see colleagues, but I also see perpetrators. He implicates everyone, himself included.
And then the reaction. You'd expect booing or someone to cut the mic.
But instead, you just hear one person clapping.
Manfred.
And it's not thunderous. It's this slow, deliberate clap. He's not clapping because Adrian is some kind of hero. He's clapping because, for the first time in 15 years, Adrian finally told the truth.
That speech sets up their real meeting the next day. They go to the Viktualienmarkt, Markt, the big market in Munich, and walk down to the River Isar.
And this conversation. This is where the writing really shines. It's not sentimental at all. There's no hugging. Manfred is described as a shell that keeps moving out of habit. And he tells Adrian point blank, I hated you.
He says he would sit in the camp, starving, and just imagine Adrian safe in Princeton, and he hated him with a spiritual purity that is so heavy. But then he pivots to this idea of moral mathematics.
This is fascinating, because Manfred admits that even though he hated him, the logic doesn't really support the hate. He says, if you had stayed, you wouldn't have saved me. You just would have died too.
So two things are true at once.
Exactly. Adrian was a coward for leaving, and his leaving was the only rational choice. It's that tension. We want the world to be fair, You left, so you were wrong. I stayed, so I was right. But Manfred says the math just doesn't work that way.
And then he goes even further. He completely dismantles the idea that suffering makes you noble.
Right, that narrative we have, especially in movies, that the victim is always pure, a saint. Manfred just destroys it. He tells Adrian, you think you know what hunger is, but you don't know hunger until you would betray anyone for a piece of bread.
And he's not just speaking hypothetically. This is the part that just stopped me in my tracks. Manfred confesses his own sin.
Yes, he tells Adrian that in the camp, another prisoner stole his bread ration. Manfred was starving, hallucinating, so he reported the thief to the guards.
And we all know what reporting to the guards means in Dachau.
It's a death sentence. The guards beat the man. They involved 2 others, and in the end, 3 men died over that piece of bread.
How does Adrian react? Does he try to, absolve him?
Of course. Adrian tries to do the good liberal thing. He says, Manfred, you were starving. You weren't yourself. It was this system, not you.
Which feels like the right thing to say, the compassionate thing.
It is, but Manfred rejects it violently. He refuses to be let off the hook. He says, I made a choice. In that moment, I chose my life over theirs. If I say it was just the starvation, then I am saying I ceased to be a human being. I have to own it.
Wow. That's heartbreaking, but also incredibly dignified in this dark way.
Precisely. It flips the whole script. Adrian the coward has clean hands but a dirty conscience. Manfred, the victim, has dirty hands and is forcing himself to look at them every single day.
So they leave the river. They don't fix it. But they do start writing to each other from 1952 until Manfred dies in 56. And the letters shift from their personal trauma to something bigger.
To education. They developed this concept they call teaching failure, and I think this is maybe the most relevant part for us today.
I love this concept because usually when we teach philosophy or history, we teach it as a highlight reel.
Right.
Here's Kant, he was a genius. Here's Jefferson, he invented freedom. We build statues.
Right. A progression toward truth. But Manfred argues that this method is exactly what primed Germany for its fall. If you teach students that their intellectual heroes are infallible gods, you are training them to follow authority blindly.
So what's the alternative?
He says you should teach the canon as a series of magnificent failures. Take Martin Heidegger, brilliant philosopher, wrote Being in Time, also a Nazi party member who betrayed his Jewish colleagues.
So the usual approach is either cancel Heidegger, he was a Nazi, don't read him, or separate the art from the artist.
And Manfred says, do neither. Read the book and study the Nazism and ask the hard question, how did this specific philosophy allow this specific man to justify that evil? He calls the humanities mirrors for self-deception.
So they're not there to make you feel good or smart. They're there to teach us how very smart people rationalize terrible things.
That's it. You're not teaching students to be smart. You're teaching them to be skeptical of their own cleverness.
They settle on a correspondence of failures. There's this great line in the letters. They say, successful people are boring.
I highlighted that one too. It's because successful people rarely have to dismantle their own egos. They think the system works because, well, it worked for them. It's only when you fail, when you're the coward or the collaborator, that you actually learn how the machinery really operates.
It's a bond built on brokenness. But they don't have much time. Manfred's health gives out in 1956.
His lungs, a direct result of the camps. And Adrian dies just a few years later, in 59. But before they go, they each write a book. Adrian's is Complicity. Manfred's is The Failure of German Philosophy. And they're published together posthumously as brothers, a German reckoning.
And there's one final detail, the epitaph. Adrian arranged for the same words to be on both of their gravestones, one in Massachusetts, one in Munich.
It reads, they were not brave enough when bravery mattered, but they were honest enough afterward to admit it.
It hits hard. It's so anti-heroic.
It's the ultimate rejection of the great man theory of history. It's admitting you can't fix the past. You can't undo the cowardice. The only thing left is to stop lying about it.
Which brings us back to that meta twist from the beginning. This whole story, the brothers, the letters, it's fiction, a pastiche. So why? Why not just write a history book?
I think because history is just too messy. Real people have egos, they have estates. By creating these fictional avatars, the authors could strip all that away and force the conversation that should have happened but never really did.
A simulation of a reckoning.
Exactly. And it leaves us with a challenge. We look at Adrian and Manfred and think, wow, glad I wasn't in Germany in 1937. But the authors are asking us to look at our own sins of abstraction right now.
And that's the uncomfortable part, isn't it? We do the Adrian Volkhardt thing every day. We prioritize our comfort. We buy things where we don't want to know how they were made because
Certainty would require action.
Exactly. We stay silent in meetings when something isn't right because we have a mortgage to pay.
That's it. We tell ourselves, I'm just doing my job, or it's not my place. That is the cream in the coffee. It's that small daily rebellion of comfort against conscience.
And the lesson from the Volkharts isn't that we all need to be superheroes. It's that we need to stop being so certain that we're the good guys.
Yes, certainty is the enemy. The moment you are absolutely sure you are righteous, you are capable of some terrible things. The only truly ethical stance is to be a little unsure, to constantly check your own math.
To sit with the discomfort. It's a tough sell for a bumper sticker, but I think it might be the only way forward.
I agree.
Well, this has been a heavy one, but a necessary one. The commemoration might be fiction, but the mirror it holds up is very, very real. Thanks for helping us look into it.
My pleasure.
And to everyone listening, check your coffee, check your conscience, and we'll see you in the next deep dive. Stay curious.